Charlie Chaplin's life is one of the most inspiring stories in history. It is the journey of a boy born into poverty, hardship, and struggle, who rose to become one of the most beloved figures the world has ever known. His story is not simply about an actor or a comedian. It is about resilience, creativity, and the power of laughter to heal pain. Through his films, Charlie touched billions of people across generations, yet behind his laughter were years of hunger, sadness, and rejection. His life reminds us that even when life seems impossible, we can still rise and shine. Charles Spencer Chaplin was born in London, England, on April 16, 1889. His father and mother were both performers in the city's music halls. His father, Charles Chaplin Sr., was a singer with a powerful voice, but his career was destroyed by alcoholism. His mother, Hannah, was a singer and actress with a beautiful voice, but her health was fragile, and she often struggled to earn enough money. Charlie and his older half-brother Sidney grew up in extreme poverty. Their early years were marked by hunger, unstable housing, and endless uncertainty. Charlie's father abandoned the family when he was still very young, leaving Hannah to care for the two boys alone. Life for the small family became unbearable. Hannah did her best to find work as a seamstress and performer, but her income was never steady. There were days when there was no food to eat, and nights when the family had to sleep in cold, damp rooms. Charlie often remembered how his mother would pretend to have eaten so that he and Sidney could have a little more. Poverty was a constant shadow over their lives. As if poverty was not enough, Hannah's health began to decline. She suffered from mental illness and was eventually admitted to asylums several times. When this happened, Charlie and Sidney were left completely on their own. They were sent to workhouses and orphanages, places where poor children were sent to survive. Life in these institutions was harsh and humiliating. Little Charlie had to grow up faster than most children, facing hunger and rejection almost daily. Yet even in the middle of all this misery, something remarkable was forming inside him. He discovered he had a natural gift for entertaining people. From an early age, Charlie loved to mimic others, copying their voices, movements, and expressions. He could make people laugh even in the most difficult circumstances. Once, when his mother lost her voice on stage, 5-year-old Charlie stepped in and performed for the angry audience. Instead of rejecting him, the crowd erupted in laughter and applause. At that moment, Charlie realized his true calling. He understood that his purpose was to make people laugh, to bring them joy, even when life was hard. As he grew older, Charlie looked for every opportunity to perform. At the age of 9, he joined a group of young performers called the 8 Lancashire Lads. They were dancers, and while Charlie was not the best dancer, he had something no one else had: the ability to make people laugh without saying a word. His clumsy movements, funny expressions, and natural charm quickly made him stand out. This was the beginning of his career in entertainment. During his teenage years, Charlie worked with various theater companies, slowly building a reputation as a talented comedian. He learned how to use his face, his body, and his timing to create laughter. His performances caught the attention of the famous Fred Carnot troupe, one of the best comedy companies in England. With them, Charlie toured not just the United Kingdom, but also America. Audiences loved him, and his talent was undeniable. It was in America that destiny opened the biggest door of his life. In 1913, while performing with the Carnot troupe in the United States, Charlie was noticed by Keystone Studios, a film company in Hollywood. They were looking for new actors for their silent films. At first, Charlie was unsure about leaving the theater for film, but he decided to try. His first few appearances were small, but soon he created a character that would change his life forever. In one of his early films, Charlie dressed in a way that became iconic. He wore a small bowler hat, a tight coat, oversized trousers, large shoes, and carried a little cane. He added a small mustache, and thus, the Tramp was born. The Tramp was a poor man, often hungry and unlucky, but always full of dignity, charm, and kindness. He was clumsy yet clever, silly yet touching, weak yet full of spirit. In this character, Charlie put all his childhood experiences, the hunger, the poverty, the rejection, and also the hope that one day life would be better. The Tramp became an instant success. Audiences across the world adored him. Even though the films were silent, Charlie's gestures and expressions spoke louder than words. People from every country and every culture could understand him. His comedy needed no translation. Soon, Charlie Chaplin became the most famous comedian in the world. By the 1920s, Charlie was no longer just an actor. He had become a filmmaker, a writer, and even a composer of music for his films. His movies, such as The Kid, The Gold Rush, City Lights, and Modern Times, were not only funny but also deeply emotional. He combined comedy with messages about life, poverty, injustice, and hope. In The Kid, he showed the love between a poor man and an abandoned child. In The Gold Rush, he turned hunger and poverty into brilliant comedy. In City Lights, he created one of the most moving love stories in film history. In Modern Times, he criticized the dehumanizing effects of industrialization while still making people laugh. Charlie's films were more than entertainment. They were lessons about humanity. He reminded audiences that even the poorest and weakest people had dignity and value. His comedy was not cruel. It was compassionate. Behind the funny walk and silly face was a man who understood suffering better than most. He knew what it meant to go to bed hungry. He knew what it meant to feel unwanted. And through his art, he transformed that pain into laughter that healed others. Even as sound films replaced silent films, Charlie continued to create masterpieces. His film The Great Dictator, released in 1940, was his first full-sound movie and one of his boldest works. In it, he played both a poor Jewish barber and a dictator who resembled Adolf Hitler. The film was a brave act of resistance against fascism at a time when the world was at war. The powerful final speech of the film was a call for peace, kindness, and humanity. Through it, Chaplin proved that comedy could be a weapon against tyranny and hate. But fame did not mean his life was without challenges. In America, Chaplin was often criticized for his political views and personal relationships. During the Cold War, he was accused of having communist sympathies, and in 1952, while he was traveling to Europe, the United States government denied him re-entry. It was a devastating moment for him. But Charlie, who had always been a survivor, rebuilt his life in Switzerland with his family. Despite these difficulties, Chaplin continued to work, creating films such as Limelight and A King in New York. Even when his popularity in America declined, the rest of the world continued to celebrate him as a genius of cinema. In 1972, after many years, he returned to the United States to receive an honorary Academy Award. The audience gave him a standing ovation that lasted 12 minutes, one of the longest in Oscar history. It was a moment of reconciliation, proof that his art had touched millions and would never be forgotten. Charlie Chaplin's life came full circle. The boy who once slept hungry on the streets of London became a legend who made the entire world laugh. He passed away in 1977 at the age of 88 in Switzerland, leaving behind a legacy that remains unmatched. His films are still watched. His character, the tramp, is still recognized. And his message of hope and humanity still inspires. Chaplin's journey teaches us that no matter how poor, broken, or rejected we may feel, we have within us the power to rise. He turned his pain into art, his struggles into comedy, and his loneliness into a gift for humanity. He showed the world that laughter is not just entertainment. It is medicine for the soul. His life reminds us that even when everything seems lost, we must never stop moving forward. Today, decades after his passing, Charlie Chaplin remains a timeless figure. His story is not only about cinema. It is about the triumph of the human spirit. From a child abandoned and hungry on the streets of London to a global icon loved by millions, Chaplin's journey is proof that greatness can rise from the harshest beginnings. He is remembered not just as a comedian, but as a symbol of resilience, creativity, and love for humanity. And every time his little tramp character walks clumsily across the screen, we are reminded that laughter is the language of hope, and hope is what keeps us alive.